Deep in the North Atlantic, on a remote island where no trees grow and the wind never stops howling, sits a solitary white house. No roads lead to it, no neighbors exist for miles, no power lines connect it to civilization. This is the image that broke the internet. Millions of people have seen it. Thousands have asked the same questions. Who lives here? Why would anyone choose such isolation? And what secrets does this lonely structure hold? Some say it was built by a reclusive billionaire preparing for the end of the world. Others claim it belongs to one of Iceland's most famous musicians, seeking ultimate privacy. The internet has spun tale after tale about this mysterious dwelling. But the truth? The truth is stranger, more haunting, and more beautiful than any of the myths. This is Elliðaey Island, located off the southern coast of Iceland. It's approximately 110 acres of windswept grassland, surrounded by some of the most unforgiving waters in the world. The island has no harbor. Landing here requires perfect timing, calm seas, and more than a little courage. For most of human history, this place was home to 5 families who somehow managed to carve out a life in one of Earth's most inhospitable locations. They raised cattle, hunted puffins, and fished the treacherous waters around them. But in the 1930s, something changed. The last inhabitants packed their belongings and left this isolated rock forever, abandoning it to the wind, the birds, and the relentless North Atlantic storms. The island sat empty for 2 decades. And then, in 1953, someone decided to build a house here again. A single, solitary structure in the middle of nowhere. The question is, why? To understand the truth behind the world's loneliest house, we need to separate fact from fiction, legend from reality. We need to travel back through time, dive into Icelandic history, and uncover what really happens in that mysterious white building. Because the answer will surprise you. Before we reveal what this house truly is, let's talk about what it's not. Because the legends surrounding this lonely structure have taken on a life of their own, spreading across social media, travel blogs, and YouTube videos, each one more fantastical than the last. The most popular myth? That this house belongs to Björk, the famous Icelandic singer. According to this widely shared story, the government of Iceland gifted her this entire island as a private sanctuary, where she could escape the pressures of fame and create music in total isolation. It's a romantic idea that fits perfectly with her eccentric public persona. It's also completely false. Björk has never owned this house. She's never lived on Elliðaey Island. She's likely never even set foot on it. So where did this persistent myth come from? The confusion stems from a different event in 2000, when the Icelandic government did indeed offer Björk her own island as a thank you for putting Iceland on the global cultural map. But that island was in a completely different location, and even then, Björk politely declined the offer. Somehow, through the chaotic game of internet telephone, the two stories merged, twisted, and evolved into the myth we see today. Then there's the billionaire bunker theory. In this version, a wealthy recluse purchased the island and built this house as a doomsday shelter, preparing for the apocalypse in style. Some versions claim it's stocked with years of supplies, fortified against intruders, and equipped with secret underground facilities. In an era of growing anxiety about pandemics, climate collapse, and social unrest, this theory resonates deeply with people. But look at the evidence, or rather the lack of it. There are no solar panels visible on the roof. No wind turbines spinning in the constant Atlantic breeze. No satellite dishes for communication. No obvious water filtration systems. If this were truly a state-of-the-art survival bunker built by someone with unlimited resources, it's remarkably poorly equipped for the end of the world. Another common theory suggests the house is simply abandoned, a relic from another era left to slowly decay in the harsh elements. That perhaps it was once inhabited but now stands empty. A ghost house on a ghost island, slowly being reclaimed by nature. This one gets closer to the truth. The house does sit empty for most of the year, but abandoned? Not quite. The real story is both simpler and more fascinating than any of these internet legends. This house wasn't built for celebrities seeking solitude or billionaires preparing for doomsday. It was built for a very specific purpose, one deeply connected to centuries of Icelandic tradition and culture. So what is it really for? To answer that, we need to go back in time, to when Elliðaey wasn't empty at all. Let's travel back in time. Back to the 1700s, when Elliðaey Island wasn't a curiosity for internet users, but home. 5 families lived on this tiny rock. They weren't wealthy. They weren't seeking isolation as some kind of lifestyle choice. They lived here because they had to. This was survival, pure and simple. Life on Elliðaey was brutal. The families raised cattle on the sparse grassland, fished the dangerous waters, and hunted seabirds, particularly puffins. These comical-looking birds with their bright orange beaks weren't just cute, they were a crucial food source. Puffin meat, puffin eggs, even puffin feathers, everything was used. For over 200 years, these families endured. They survived storms that would terrify most people today. They lived without electricity, without modern medicine, without any of the conveniences we take for granted. Every supply had to be brought by boat, weather permitting. In winter, they could be cut off for weeks, but by the 1930s, it became too much. The younger generation wanted education, opportunity, a life beyond the constant struggle. One by one, the families left. By 1930, the last residents packed their belongings, loaded them onto a boat, and sailed away. Elliðaey became uninhabited. For 20 years, the island sat empty. The grass grew wild. The puffins nested without human interference. The wind howled through the ruins of old stone houses. Then, in 1953, something unexpected happened. The Elliðaey Hunting Association, a group dedicated to preserving traditional Icelandic hunting practices, decided to build a lodge on the island. Not a home, not a shelter, a hunting lodge. This was the White House that would one day captivate millions online. The purpose was clear: to continue the centuries-old tradition of puffin hunting. Every summer, members of the Hunting Association would make the treacherous journey to the island, stay in the lodge, and hunt puffins, just as the original islanders had done. Inside the lodge is surprisingly simple. There's a fireplace for warmth, a dining table where hunters gather after a day's work, sleeping quarters with basic beds, but there's no running water. No electricity, no internet, obviously. Water comes from rainwater collection, heat comes from the fireplace, light comes from gas lamps and whatever daylight streams through the windows. It's rustic, it's isolated, and for the hunters who use it, it's perfect. The tradition of puffin hunting itself is controversial to outsiders. These birds, with their distinctive appearance and somewhat clumsy flying, seem too charming to hunt. But in Iceland, sustainable puffin hunting has been practiced for over 1,000 years. The hunters don't take more than the population can sustain. They follow strict regulations. They maintain a balance. So this lonely house, this structure that launched 1,000 internet theories, is actually a link to Iceland's past. It's a place where tradition survives in a modern world, where people still live briefly, the way their ancestors did centuries ago. No billionaires, no celebrities. Just hunters, puffins, and the endless North Atlantic wind. So what's it actually like on Elliðaey today? Let's paint the picture. The island is roughly 110 acres of steep, grassy slopes rising from the sea. The highest point reaches about 370 feet above the water. There are no trees, no beaches, no gentle shores, just dramatic cliffs dropping into the churning Atlantic below. The grass is thick and green during summer, fed by near-constant moisture from ocean spray and frequent rain. In winter, the island turns harsher. Storms batter it relentlessly. Waves crash against the rocks with enough force to send spray halfway up the cliffs. And the puffins. During breeding season from April to August, thousands of Atlantic puffins descend on Elliðaey. They nest in burrows dug into the soft earth. The air fills with their calls, a strange growling sound that doesn't match their cute appearance. They waddle along the cliff tops, launch themselves into awkward flight, and dive into the ocean for fish. This is what makes Elliðaey special to the Hunting Association. It's one of the best puffin colonies in Iceland. But getting to the island? That's where things get complicated. There's no dock, no harbor, no easy landing spot. Boats must approach during calm weather and time their approach perfectly. Visitors, when they're allowed, must literally be thrown from the boat onto the rocks, or make a dangerous leap. It's not a place for tourists, despite what some travel blogs might suggest. The Icelandic government strictly controls access. The hunting lodge is private property of the Elliðaey Hunting Association. You can't just show up. Even if you could make the crossing, you'd be trespassing. Occasionally, researchers visit to study the puffin population. Climate change and overfishing have put pressure on puffin colonies across the North Atlantic. Scientists monitor breeding success, count nests, and track population trends. But these visits are rare and carefully coordinated. For the most part, Elliðaey belongs to the birds and the wind. The house sits there, white against green, visible from the mainland on clear days. A reminder that isolation still exists in our hyper-connected world. That there are still places where cell phones don't work, where Wi-Fi is a fantasy, where the only sounds are waves, wind, and puffin calls. The hunters who use the lodge today are keeping alive something their great-grandparents knew. They're maintaining a connection to Iceland that existed long before tourism, before the internet made their hunting lodge accidentally famous, before millions of people wondered about the lonely White House on the Green Island. So why are we so fascinated by this house? Maybe it's because in a world of constant noise, constant connection, constant demands on our attention, the idea of a place like Elliðaey feels almost mythical. A house where your phone won't ring, where no emails arrive, where the biggest decision of the day is when to light the fire. We've created a world where true isolation is nearly impossible. We carry the internet in our pockets. We're tracked by satellites, connected by cell towers, findable through a dozen different apps. Privacy has become a luxury. Solitude has become rare. And then we see this house, this simple white structure on an island at the edge of the world, and we project our fantasies onto it. Of course it belongs to someone famous. Of course it's a billionaire's escape plan, because who else would have access to something so many of us secretly want? But the reality is more honest. This house exists for a practical purpose. It's a tool, not a dream. The hunters who stay there aren't escaping the modern world, they're honoring an old one. They're doing work that's been done for centuries, in the same way, in the same place. There's something profound in that. In a time when everything changes constantly, when technology advances at dizzying speed, when traditions are abandoned in favor of convenience, here's a place where people still do things the old way. Not because they're opposed to progress, but because some things are worth preserving. The loneliness of the house is an illusion. It's not lonely when it's filled with hunters sharing stories around the fire. It's not empty when thousands of puffins nest just outside. It's not isolated when it's connected to centuries of human history. We made it lonely by looking at it through screens, by seeing only the image without understanding the story. We turned it into a mystery because we couldn't imagine that the answer might be simple. But sometimes the simple answers are the most satisfying. Sometimes a house is just a house, a tool for a purpose, a shelter in the storm, a place where people continue doing what people have always done, living alongside nature, taking what they need, respecting what sustains them. Elliðaey Island will probably never stop fascinating people. That viral image will continue to circulate, gathering new myths, inspiring new theories. And that's okay. Let people wonder. Let them dream about what it would be like to live there, even if the reality would be too harsh for most of us. Because in the wondering, in the dreaming, we're all seeking the same thing. A moment of quiet in a loud world. A glimpse of a life less complicated. A reminder that places like this still exist, even if we'll never visit them. The world's loneliest house isn't lonely at all. It's just waiting. Waiting for the next hunters to arrive. Waiting for the puffins to return. Waiting for the next person to see its picture and ask that eternal question. Who lives there? Now you know the answer. And somehow knowing makes it even more beautiful.